Hi, I'm Stephen Vizinczey, the author of In Praise of Older Women, An Innocent Millionaire, Truth and Lies and Literature, and If Only. I want to talk to you today about Bulgakov, who was the greatest Russian writer in the 20th century. I don't know whether you can see it, of Russian literature. We talked earlier about books in which the biblical story of religion was ridiculed by Voltaire and Mark Twain, and the thing about striking thing about these books is that they were written at a time when Christianity was all powerful in Europe. Now, this novel about in Soviet Union, where religion was abolished and frowned upon, Christianity became the religion of the suppressed, of the faith which couldn't speak its name. And today, indeed, Christianity is the most persecuted community in the world, the Christian community. So this has a totally different view from the view which we can have from Mark Twain and Swift and Voltaire. They write about when Christianity was in power. These Bulgakov wrote at a time when Christianity and religion in general was suppressed. So here it really shows you that how belief had a lot to do and how we receive the religion or God or Jesus or whatever has less to do with religion than with the fact that whether it is in power, it's a religion is in power or suppressed. And in Bulgakov, The Master and Margarita, the very fact that Jesus existed is a positive thing. It's a hope for people who have no religion to help them, no belief which can help them, and to cope with the terror of existence and the terror of death. So the key character in this book is Pontius Pilate. Pontius Pilate here appears to believe in Christ, is a good person, but has to condemn him to crucifixion because this is what the state wants. So here it's about basically about people. Pontius Pilate represent people who do evil not believing it, which was very true of the Soviet Union, where any kind of normal human reaction, pity, horror of crimes was suppressed. So how people who know better can commit horrible acts of of torture and murder. And this was the great issue in the Soviet Union under Stalin. And it's a great issue in this book. It is indicative that this book could not appear in Russian before the collapse, before the death of Stalin and the end of the terror. It was first printed in Russian after Khrushchev exposed Stalin's crimes. And so this is the background, but also the inner thing of how a dictatorship works. The common with Voltaire and Mark Twain, the devil here too is a positive figure who Bulgakov quotes Goethe saying that wanted eternally, where is that quote? So at least, who art you? That power I serve would wills forever evil, yet forever does good. And this is the negation, how the negation is a positive act. The devil here, as in Voltaire or Mark Twain, represents rebellion against the accepted view of things. And Bulgakov was a very great playwright, the best playwright, Russian playwright in the 20th century. And very strangely, this book is published by Vintage Books, and it doesn't only mentions one of his plays. He also wrote a wonderful play about Pushkin's death. But what is great about the political background of the novel is the constant shifting between the fantastic and the realistic. This is a most difficult thing to do, and Bulgakov does it perfectly. And so basically, whether it's a realistic story or a fantastic story, the main point is that it's about real life. And the article about the theater. All right, you want to ask some question?
Yeah, let me introduce myself. My name is Matthew, and I've been filming some of Stephen's reviews, so I thought to probe more into some of the books. It's interesting that you've mentioned Pontius Pilate as one of the central characters in the book, but do you want to discuss a bit about the love between the master and Margarita, because I think that's also, because of the title of the book, one of the basic premises of it. Do you want to give your thoughts on that for anyone who's never really come across the book?
Yeah. Well, the master is a playwright who is bound by the regime and not allowed to say what he wants to say. He wrote a book about, the master wrote a book about Jesus, and it was attacked in the press even though it was never published, and which was also the fate of Bulgakov himself. in the Soviet regime. So it's basically about what a tough thing is to be a writer in a totalitarian dictatorship. I mean, if anybody writes books today in Saudi Arabia, the Master and Margarita would strike a chord. It is he writes a story about it, and it's never performed, and never even accepted. Yet, although it is never appeared, it is attacked in the newspapers by hawks of the dictatorship.
And what about Margarita? What's her story?
Margarita is the girl he falls in love with. It's a woman. Again, it could start a universal. It's a universal human feeling. It's about a wife who has a wonderful husband, except she doesn't love him.
Yeah.
And so feels lonely. And he falls in love with the master. And it's their love story is beautifully written, and that alone is worth to read the book for. But basically, whether it is the love story itself or the social background, is really the best book you can read about Soviet Russia. And I think it's an essential book, and actually totally different from any other book. Its handling of the fantastic and the realistic is the way he switches from one to the other without ever getting away from presenting. Even with the fantastic, he presents human nature as it is. So the fantastic only highlights aspects of reality in a dictatorship, which is really universal.
Yeah.
You could compare it to a book like Orwell's 1984. It's a much better book than 1984 because the human spirit and love and goodness comes through it in a way which is not present in Orwell. He was clearly a greater writer than Orwell. And really, you can, you have never read a novel. You have never read a novel like The Master of Margarita. As I say, the switching from the realistic to the fantastic, while still remaining about human nature, truthful about human nature, is incredible, and done in a way which hasn't been done in any other book I know of.
Can you hold up the cover of the book? And we notice it has a black cat.
Yeah.
And there's some strange characters in that book. Would you want to describe them, especially Satan, who visits Russia, and his associates, and that massive black cat called, I think it's Behemoth, I believe. Do you want to describe the characters?
The character at the end of the book turns into an angel, a prince, but as a cat, he is a fantastic, malicious character who does terrible things to bad people. So it's very strange, but there is a whole literature. Again, this is very much like Voltaire or Mark Twain, that they are all, although the devil is a main character in all their books, they come through as very moral characters, because they are always on the side of truth and hate cruelty and falsity and hypocrisy. And the hypocrites and false people are always come to a bad end. Well, I really do hope you will read this book, because you will, it's unlike any other book you have ever read. And well, one of the few masterpieces of world literature. See you next time.